Hi guys, it's Val. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Valerie and I make miniature polymer clay sculptures as well as illustrations. But today's video is a little bit different from what I usually post because I wanted to share some exciting personal news with you guys, and that is I recently made a career change. I think most people who follow me on either YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok don't know this about me, but I was actually a science major in school. So I studied science for 6 years, got my graduate degree, and then after graduating I worked as a researcher at a lab full-time. And now last month I just made a switch to become a toy/product designer for a company. I wanted to make this video mainly because I felt like you guys gave me a lot of that courage that I needed to make the jump, and so my only hope for this video is that it gives you a little bit of that back. And you know, if you are also thinking about taking an unconventional path or making a career change yourself, I wanted to show you that it is definitely possible even if you studied something completely different in school. Off the top of my head, I can actually think of a few artists and designers who I know who also studied something different in school and later on transitioned into an art/creative career. So it's definitely not uncommon, and I noticed that's especially the case for artists and creatives because a lot of us don't realize until later in life that we don't have to be a starving artist. That's like a myth. There's a lot of opportunity, especially nowadays, for artists and creatives. Anyways, so in this video I wanted to first talk a little bit about my art journey, how I grew up with art, and I guess what led me up to this change. And then in the second part of the video I will talk a bit about the hiring process and what I had to do to get the job that I have now. And then the third part of the video I will answer some questions that my Instagram followers had sent me that I didn't get to answer in the previous sections. Whether you are in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond watching this, I hope this video just gives you, again, that little bit of courage to pursue what you've always wanted to, whether that's as a hobby or as a career. I also want to encourage you to leave a comment if you have your own perspective or story to share, if you've had a successful career switch, or if you're in the process of one, or if you're thinking about it, because I think most people watching this, as well as myself, are going to be scrolling through the comments to see if our own experiences are reflected. And I think the comment section will be really helpful to all of us so we don't feel so alone in this experience. I was always an artsy kid growing up. I remember when I was really young and my family and I would go out to restaurants to eat, I would always ask for a pencil to draw on the back of like the paper placemats. My family's also very entrepreneurial, like they have a small business, and I remember when I was like 6 or 7, I was trying to redesign their logo. I think my aunt was the one who caught on really early that I liked a lot of things related to art, so she would put me into these drawing and painting classes over the summers. I really enjoyed dancing, so I did ballet when I was 3 all the way till I was like 18. I've also tried other things as well, but I failed at them, so I've tried figure skating and it hurt my butt too much to fall. And I've also tried piano, but I hated practicing, so I never continued with that. But drawing and dancing were always my favorite art things to do. I also definitely think I get my artistic genes from my mom because she doesn't have a lot of time to do this sort of thing, but anytime she does try something artsy or crafty, it always turns out really well. Even though I grew up doing all of these artistic activities, I somehow got the impression that I could only do it as a hobby and nothing more serious than that. So I never thought about pursuing it as an actual career because I think, one, I didn't understand how much opportunity there were for creatives. I wish that when I was younger I had done more research on my own. But when I was in my teens, I think I mostly just accepted the fact that like art was too risky for me to pursue and that I would never be financially stable if I pursued art. I also got the impression that art was a very, very competitive field, and I remember having a family friend who I really admired. She was a couple years older than me, and I thought like, wow, I'd never be as talented and skilled as she is. Yet she went on to go to art school and struggled to find a job afterwards. I think at least for the first like few years of graduating, but I'm sure she's doing like fine now. But that pretty much discouraged me from pursuing art just because of hearing that one example. And I think as you get older, you realize that every field is competitive. There are talented people in every single field. So you might as well do something that you feel like you're best at and that you have a lot of passion for, because I think that's what's going to drive you to success. The other thing was I felt like even though at a pretty young age I knew that art was my favorite subject and it was also probably my strongest subject, I felt that my art skills were not nearly as valued compared to my math or science skills. In other words, me doing well in, say, visual arts in school was somehow less than another kid who did really well in math. And when you're a kid, that can be pretty discouraging. But I don't think that's anybody's fault specifically. It's just that society has this impression of artists, and I hope that it can change in the future. The first person to encourage me to pursue art more seriously as a career was actually my high school art teacher. And I remember in my senior year when I was applying to universities, I went to ask my art teacher for a reference letter for another program that I was applying to. And I remember her first response was, well, where is your request to an art school, Val? And I was like, oh, I'm not applying to art school. And she said, Val, I think you should really consider at least one art school application. I think you're going to regret it down the road if you don't. I didn't listen and I didn't apply to any art schools, and I thought maybe I would just pursue art later on in life or as a hobby. Now when I think back to it though, I don't really regret not going to art school because there were some experiences that I've gotten in my science degrees that I would have never been able to get anywhere else. In fact, even when I started working at the research lab full-time, I didn't dislike or hate my job either. I feel like part of it is because I always got to work with such awesome people that it kind of distracted me from reflecting on how much I enjoyed the actual work itself. During undergrad, I didn't have a whole lot of time to make art. It wasn't until my third year that I picked up polymer clay. I already knew about polymer clay at the time because in 8th grade, my best friend and I kind of dabbled in it a little bit. We made like 1 or 2 charms together. And then fast forward to my undergrad, I had really wanted a nice Maruko phone case. Maruko is an anime that I grew up watching and I love collecting her items, but I couldn't find any phone cases that I liked, so I watched a YouTube video on how to make your own silicone and polymer clay phone case and I gave it a try. I think the next Christmas after that, I made my friends matching charms as Christmas presents and they were encouraging me to sell my charms on Etsy. I wasn't sure about selling on Etsy, but I did want to share some of my artwork on Instagram, so that's how I started my art page. Once I graduated and started working full-time, I actually had more time to make art, so I spent a lot of my weeknights and weekends making stuff and posting them on my social media. It wasn't long after that the panini hit, and then I had even more time because I had nowhere to go on the weekends. I spent a lot of time alone during the pandemic, and I felt like that gave me the time and space that I needed to actually reflect on how much happier I was when I was making art. I felt very fulfilled, and more importantly, I felt very myself and in my element when I was making art. For the entirety of last year, I felt like I just kept trying to chase that feeling of fulfillment, and I started exploring other ways to show my art. I started a TikTok page and I started making little time-lapse videos that I really enjoyed doing. I was posting more consistently than I've ever posted, and my TikTok gained a little bit of a following, which brought over followers to my Instagram and YouTube. That growth on social media started bringing in a lot more orders for my work, and I started noticing that my art was bringing in a consistent part-time income. It wasn't a lot, but it got me thinking that maybe it's actually feasible for me to do art as a full-time career. I have a lot of thoughts and I guess dreams about my personal art, of where I want to take it next. But at the moment, I feel like I still have a lot to learn as an artist. I feel very safe and comfortable when I make my personal art, and part of me is wondering if I'm making things in this specific style because it's a choice, or whether it's because my skills are limited. So realistically, I felt like I had three options. I could either go back to art school and get a BFA, or I could work my full-time job and take some art classes on the side, or I jump straight into job hunting with whatever skills I have and learn while I'm on the job. I felt like for my financial and emotional well-being, the first choice was probably not my favorite choice because I just got out of school. The second choice would probably mean that I'd have to give up keeping up with my personal art, and I didn't really want to do that either. So I felt like I wanted to try my third option before I go with the other two. At this point, I've done a lot of graphic design work for school organizations, and I've also taken some contract graphic design jobs. I've done a website redesign, but my biggest experience was probably with my personal art and running my small business. I did pick up Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and learned that on my own time over the years. Then I started really thinking about what specifically I liked doing in art. I knew that I loved doing illustrations, I knew that I liked storytelling and character building, character design. I also really enjoyed product design as well. You guys can probably tell from my social media, but I really enjoy taking a 2D conceptual idea and turning it into a three-dimensional, usable, tangible product. I spent hours and hours doing more research on what suits my interests and skills, and that's how I discovered toy design, which pretty much combined everything that I loved doing in art. At around the same time of discovering the toy design industry, I was supporting another artist who was collaborating with a company to make a toy. I remember looking at the company's About page, and I saw that they actually had designers and illustrators on the team. And I checked the careers page to see if there was an opening, but at the time they weren't hiring, and I was a little bit bummed out. But I just kept checking back every few weeks or so to see if they were hiring. Miraculously, a month or so ago, there was an opening at that company for a designer position. I also saw that they had cross-posted their job listing onto LinkedIn as well. And mind you, I'm usually never on LinkedIn unless I'm looking for opportunities, because I find that that platform is just horrible for my mental health. I always come out of that platform feeling very unaccomplished and bad about myself. Anyways, when I saw that job posting and I was about to apply, I saw that there were already more than 100 applicants for the job, which is not atypical for any job in any field, but I couldn't help but feel very intimidated and honestly pretty scared about applying, because in my head I was just running through all the applicants in that pool who have a degree, have way more experience than I do, but I feel like I had absolutely nothing to lose by applying, but everything to lose if I don't. I applied for the job with my portfolio and resume. My portfolio consisted only of my sculpting and illustration work, and it's basically what you guys see on my Instagram. but I just picked out specific pieces that I felt like was my best work, and I picked pieces that I felt like best represented who I was and what I like to do, and also that I felt like is fitting for the company that I was applying to as well. A week after I submitted my initial application, I heard back from the company, and I remember I was actually on a call with my friends when I received the email, and I think my face was probably red for a whole 20 minutes because I was just so ecstatic and I didn't expect to hear back at all. After that initial email, I had to do a design test which tested my Adobe Illustrator skills and how I would go about designing a plush toy. Then I had to do an interview. The whole hiring process took about 3 weeks, and at the end of the 3 weeks, I got the job offer. I was absolutely ecstatic, and it just made me think back to all the times throughout my 20s so far where I felt like I was in a little bit of like an identity crisis, but now I finally feel like I am totally myself and doing what I was meant to do. In terms of how things are going, it's been absolutely amazing. I still can't believe I get to draw and design fun things for a living. I get to work with an amazing team of designers. The learning curve is very steep for me at the moment, but I'm hoping that I can catch up to speed soon. Right now, my job mostly consists of designing plushies, but I might be able to tap into other product designs as well over time. Once I get more settled into my job and have a little bit more experience under my belt, I can probably do a separate video if you guys are interested, just talking about my responsibilities as a product designer. But for now, this pretty much wraps up my story time of how the whole career change thing happened. And now I'm going to move on to the third section of this video where I answer some of your questions that you had sent me on Instagram. The first question here is from my friend Maria, and she asked, do you need a portfolio for being a toy designer? Yes, you do. I think for most art jobs you do need a portfolio, but just make sure that you pick pieces that are relevant to the specific art job that you're applying to. What kind of programs or skills will you be using for your job? Is it more digital or hands-on? It's definitely mostly digital. I use Adobe Illustrator the most on a day-to-day basis, but in the future I'd also like to learn Blender. Oh my god, this is so exciting. Happy for you, Valerie. Will it all be your own designs? Thank you so much. Will it all be my own designs? Yes and no, because right now we are working mostly with clients to create a plush, and so usually the character is already predetermined for me, but my job as a designer is to translate that 2D character into a 3D plush. Curious, what kind of science did you work in? So I did my bachelor's in biomedical science, and my master's thesis was in neuroanatomy/neuroscience, and I worked in biopharmaceutical sciences. Congratulations, Val, but didn't you worry that everything was in vain what you've learned before? Thank you so much, Melanie. I don't think so, because I, again, really enjoyed doing my 2 degrees at the time, and I also feel a little bit more secure in myself as well, that I can always go back to finding a science job if I wanted to. The other thing is that I feel like me taking a bit of a longer path made me appreciate what I have now even more. How do you deal with stress and anxiety? Not very well, to be quite frank. I'm trying not to overthink things as much as I do, but I still do it. I'm still working on it. Making art was probably my biggest outlet in terms of relieving stress. Making art my career now will bring its own challenges, because now I have deadlines to meet, and you know, there might be projects that come my way that I don't really want to do or that I'm not really interested in, but still I have to power through it because it's my job. Or I might be stuck in a creative block and I don't want to create, but I have to do it anyways. But these are all, I guess, challenges and stresses that I've already anticipated going into this, so I feel ready to take that on. How long have you been making clay? I've been working with clay since 2017. Advice for when you want to career change but it pays less. I think it depends on how much less, because even if it's your dream job, it has to be financially feasible for you. Say it's just like a couple K difference, then I would probably focus on how much potential there is to grow and earn more down the road once you have more experience. And I would also think about it like, is that difference in pay worth your happiness? For me personally, I would rather take a little bit of a dip in pay, but work a job where I feel happier and more fulfilled. Any advice for artists who might not be very good, want to improve, but don't think it's possible? I personally definitely think it's possible. I think that art is a learned skill that takes practice to get really good at. If drawing is what you're into, for example, draw for 30 minutes to an hour every day. Like, use a lot of reference photos, study what your favorite artists do, and I feel like if you keep doing that consistently, in a year's time you're going to see huge progress. How do you decide if your creative passions should be a career or a hobby? This is a really big question, but I think not only do you have to have passion for the job, but it's also important to have a certain level of confidence that you can do a good job in it. And I say that because sometimes even if you have the most passion for something, if you can't get it to work for yourself, it can be very discouraging and stressful. But if you think your passion can carry you through all of the challenges that come with that job, then I definitely think it's worth considering making it your career. Is it ever too late to start doing something you love? I'm 27 and I feel like my life is over. My dude, you're 27. How are you old? I hate that social media has this way of making all of us feel unaccomplished and all of us feel old no matter how old we are. I see YouTubers who are teenagers thinking that they're old. I don't think it's ever too late to start doing something you love. I'm approaching my late 20s and a lot of people my age are probably in senior and managerial positions by now, and here I am starting at a new industry. I know it's really difficult to not compare your progress in life with other people's, but I find when I just tune all of that out and hone in on my own path and focus on myself, that's usually when I make the biggest strides in life. Oh, and I read this quote from somewhere that at this exact moment in time, you are both the oldest and also the youngest that you'll ever be. So whatever you want to do, like, don't wait, just do it now. I really hope that this video was at least a little bit interesting or helpful to you. I feel like I wasn't able to provide a whole lot of insight yet because I'm just entering the industry, but if you guys are interested, like, let me know, and maybe down the line when I have more experience, I can make more videos on this topic. I want to wish you guys the best of luck on your journey and know that I am here rooting for you. I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Pack up my summer in a Ziploc bag. Old maps and tchotchkes, photographs said this and that. I'll write myself a letter so that I'll remember